Live from the KDAL studios at Lake and Superior Street in downtown Duluth, it stars Over the Prairie with 8-time Minnesota Music Award winner Paul Metsa.
And I wish I could see stars over the prairie, stars over the prairie tonight.
Featuring cool people from all walks of life. Check out previous show podcasts at KDAL610.com. The phone lines are open at 218-722-0839. Now, here's Paul Metsa.
And I wish I could see stars over the prairie, stars over the prairie tonight.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Stars Over the Prairie. This is your host, Paul Metsa. I've got my wingman behind the board, Chris Allen, and we have a phenomenal show here today on Stars Over the Prairie. But people ask me, Paul, what do you do on Stars Over the Prairie? Well, we interview stars. People that want to be stars, people that used to be stars, people that just like to grab a cold one and go outside at night and look at the stars.
And sometimes that leads to falling over and seeing stars.
Well, it just so happens we're broadcasting on the Big KDAL 610 AM, 103.9 FM, and we are in the studio 237 somersaults down the hill.
Wait a minute, that went up by one. Remeasure?
I had an extra martini the other night. From Bob Dylan's childhood home, and we're a stone's throw away from Bob Dylan Way here in the Zenith City by the unsalted sea. We've got a lot of music to talk about. We've got some great musicians in the studio. We have some friends of mine that I just met recently that will be performing at a benefit. I'm producing the benefit for Ukraine on Wednesday, May 14th, 7 p.m. at Sacred Heart Music Center. And the musicians in the studio today are the Duluth Superior Harbor Masters. Formed in 1953, these guys sing music that your grandma and grandpa and mom and dad probably used to sing to you when
everything's
you were little.
back in.
Yeah, everything old is new again.
Yeah.
Exactly, Chris. And so they're going to be singing live. We got 4 handsome gentlemen with us from the Duluth Superior Harbor Masters. We've got a great conversation, too, coming up with author and journalist John Rosengren from Minneapolis, who just wrote a really cool article about John Denver and his time in the Twin Cities in the late 60s and early 70s. He did a little research on John Henry Deutschendorf III, changed his name to John Denver because it wouldn't fit on the marquee. And but he's got a great story about Denver's Minnesota connections. Met a woman that he met and married a woman that went to Gustavus Adolphus College. So you'll hear that story, and then towards the end of the second hour, we've got my old buddy G.B. Layton, who's coming up to play at the West Theater on May 16th. So we're going to be talking to G.B. I've known him for years, since he was a young pup, and now he's a seasoned vet, and just a great guy. Puts on a great show. A lot of you probably seen G.B. He's played a lot of when they do the Grandma's Marathon every year. GB's a lot of times one of the featured acts. So he'll be at the West. We'll be talking to GB. But because we like to keep our birthday people in tune with their year coming up, May 3rd, today, if you were born today, Taurus, you have a strong rebellious streak. You'll be an expert at keeping under wraps this year. You'll have smart, experienced people working with you. A charming personality will help you in the first months to embrace a radical outlook that might take you on a long trip in thought, if not in deed. Be very lucky in June and for the rest of the summer. And you've got a surprising new person that could enter your life in the last months of the year, significantly influence yourself. So good luck with that. Famous people born on this day, well, there was a handful of them, as there usually is. Niccolo Machiavelli. We've all heard the term. He's very Machiavellian. He was born in 1469, Florence, Italy. He was a Italian diplomat and philosopher. Also wrote comedy songs and songs for carnivals, and a poet. The term Machiavellian came from his book, The Prince. That means to be Machiavellian, you would have an unscrupulous attitude, and the ends justify the means. I'm not going to mention anyone in particular. But anyway, Golda Meir was also born on this day. She was the 4th Prime Minister of Israel. They called her the Iron Lady.
That's not a good nickname.
Well, and I think Margaret Thatcher inherited that.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was a tough woman. Born 1898 in Kiev, Ukraine.
Really?
Yeah. A lot of tough people there in Ukraine. That's why we're celebrating them with a benefit for Nova Ukraine on Wednesday, May 14th. She lived to be 80 years old, passed away in 1978.
Oh, wow.
Now, I bet some of these gentlemen here today know about the great crooner Bing Crosby. Was born in 1903 in Tacoma, Washington. And, of course, everybody knows the song and a recording, White Christmas. Chris, do you have any idea how many records?
I couldn't even guess that many records. I do know that his career came back when he duetted with David Bowie.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, he was probably one of the first big stars of the first half of the 20th century, and really was one of the first guys to know how to utilize and work the microphone.
Yeah.
He was that beautiful baritone. You're not going to believe this number. It's way more than you and I have sold together.
Well, they made so many records back then because everybody was live, so they could crank them out. They didn't have the mixing and everything that they do nowadays. Now it was just done.
How about this? 500 million records.
What?
That is a lot of records.
That's a lot of time in the studio.
I would take 0.0000001% of that for my own catalog. Hey, film star Mary Astor was born in 1906 in Quincy, Illinois. She kind of made the jump from talkies to sound film.
One of the few.
Yeah, and she was also featured in that great Humphrey Bogart film, Maltese Falcon. And my hero and the godfather of any folk singer like myself out there in America, the great Pete Seeger, was born in 1919 in New York City, passed away in 2014. He had a great life, lived to be 95 years old. Did I tell you the story? I think I might have brought it up when the show started, Chris, that Pete Seeger and Woody Guthrie were in Duluth for a week in 1941. I was reading, somebody sent me a clip from the labor newspaper, and there was a picture of Woody and Pete. They actually played right across the street here from the studio in the Playmore Ballroom, which was then became the Electric Fetus, and now it's a tattoo shop.
Yeah.
I don't know if if they played on the first floor or the second floor, but they played at a labor rally, stayed in the east side of Duluth with a woman named Irene Paul, who Woody wrote a song for called Calamity Jane that we had a guest dance singer on last spring, a Superior guy who's also a rabbi and a cantor who sang the song for us. He's also a music historian. And I told this story, but it's worth telling again.
Yeah.
So they played at a lumber camp for a bunch of lumberjacks somewhere in northern Minnesota. And, Woody used to play the violin, so he was sawing all night on the violin. Pete's playing his banjo, probably playing a little guitar, and they played all night. And, Finnish men in particular are they say about the Finnish man, he loved his wife so much, he almost told her. They're not very expressive. Anyway, so they played all night long, and they got down in the morning, and they were packing up their equipment, and the camp foreman went up to him and said, "Where are you guys going?" And Pete said, "We played all night last night. We got absolutely no response." And the foreman goes, "What do you mean? They loved you." And I heard that story right from the mouth of the great Pete Seeger when I had a chance to meet him at the tribute to Woody Guthrie in '96 in Cleveland, Ohio, sponsored by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, a 4-day event, which ended up, we had a couple nights at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, then a big show on Saturday at the Odeon nightclub. It was myself, Alejandro Escovedo, Jimmy Dale Gilmore, Jorma Kaukonen, Country Joe McDonald, Sid Straw, and more. It was funny because I got in because my friend Nora Guthrie, who's Woody's daughter, had heard my music, and I ended up moving to New York and meet Nora. She's still a great friend of mine. And we went out for dinner the night before. This is back when you could smoke in restaurants.
Okay.
And so it's Nora, myself, and Country Joe McDonald from Country Joe and the Fish. So Nora and I light up after dessert, and Country Joe just gets down on us. Don't be smoking, and he's throwing a fit. I go, Joe, weren't you the one that did the F cheer at Woodstock, to 400,000 naked hippies tripping on LSD? But Joe's obviously cleaned up his act a little bit, so we took one more puff and put him out, finished cigarettes outside.
But you know how it is. Former smokers always say that as soon as somebody lights up 3 blocks away, they know.
Oh, it's true. It's absolutely true. The times I've quit.
So I'm sure he was after you because he had quit everything, and it was, I want to do that too, but I can't.
Well, the big show is on Sunday. It was at Severance Hall at Case Western University, and that featured Bruce Springsteen, Pete Seeger, Ramblin' Jack Elliott, Joe Ely, myself, Jimmy LaFave, Ani DeFranco, the Indigo Girls, and more, and Harold Leventhal, who got in the business pitching songs for Irving Berlin, of all people. And
a small name in the music business.
Well, Harold has an incredible history. He managed Pete Seeger, Woody Guthrie, Judy Collins, who is also coming to the West Theater, I believe, on the 6th and 7th of June. And also, he would go over to India. And when he was flying back one day, he met this guy had this big instrument in this big case. It was Ravi Shankar. And Harold was one of the first guys to champion what we now know as world music. He presented Ravi Shankar in concert. I couldn't tell you exactly the years, but I believe it was the mid to late 60s. So Harold was there, and he came up to get a big hug from Nora at the end of the concert with tears in his eyes, and it was really touching. Speaking of Guthrie, Seeger, and Harold Leventhal stuff, we can't forget Bob Dylan's birthday's coming up. And born on May 24th, 1941, is going to be 84 years old this year.
Wow.
And there is
he doesn't look a day over 80.
He's got the body of a 79-year-old.
Right.
And he says he reads at the level of an 86-year-old.
Wow.
But I have just announced last night I'm doing a special salute to Bob Dylan at the with Sonny Earl and Peter and Greg Inhofer, who played on keyboards on all 5 tracks of the Blood on the Tracks record that Dylan recorded in Minneapolis in December of 1974. So we're going to be doing a concert and conversation. We'll be playing Dylan's music. I've got a couple of recorded it. I've got an interview with Leroy Hoykala, who's Bob Dylan's first drummer. Leroy's not with us anymore, but we're going to fire that one up. What's really cool about this, and everybody's going to know about this theater, everybody knows where the West Theater is on the West Duluth. When my buddy Bob Boone, who runs the Duluth Theater, bought and rehabbed that theater several years ago, there was a Mexican restaurant which was next door, which had been closed down. And he never really rode around in the back of that building where the Mexican restaurant was. Well, he did, and he found it was kind of dilapidated, but it was a beautiful old vaudeville theater called the Alhambra, opened in 1913. So Bob and a handful of guys, including Mark Eskel, my hometown boy who, class of 72 from VHS High School, graduated with my sister, was one of the carpenters down there. And when they tore down the Goodman Auditorium at Virginia High School, Mark had enough foresight to go up and harvested like a lot of the lattice, which is now around the stage at the Alhambra Theater, and sconces and different things. But I just was in it yesterday. It is just amazing. It's going to be the hottest and coolest room in town. They're going to walk in. They've got a player piano. They're going to have a little stage for some live music in front. A beautiful old bar that was donated to them. And it's like walking back in time. And then when you go through, they're going to have, several booths, a little kissing booth and tables, chairs. And then when you go in the back, the actual vaudeville theater, the old Alhambra, the new Alhambra vaudeville theater has 60 seats. The acoustics are amazing. And man, they've
back in the day, they took care of stuff like that. They didn't just put up a building.
Well, and, it's hard to believe that everybody, in this room right now, and there's 6 of us, everybody's got cell phones. A lot of us, that's how we listen to our music and watch movies and television, sporting events. But, I wish I could go back to a time before television. Now, radio started, right around that time. But just when going out as part of the community to see concerts, magic acts, vaudeville, comedy. The Alhambra was a big deal back then, and it's going to be a big deal again. So anyway, my salute to Bob Dylan with Sonny Earl and Greg Inhofer will be May 20th. Starts at 8:30, and just go to the West Theater online box office. West Theater is spelled Theatre. As is the Alhambra Theater, Alhambra Vaudeville Theater. It's going to be gorgeous. Well, we've got some very handsome men sitting. Oh, before I get into what we do want to tell, Homegrown's in full swing, which is a beautiful music festival. What, it started about 11, 12 years ago, Chris?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Well, it's just, I wasn't downtown last night, but I had a friend of mine up from Minneapolis. He said it was just amazing. But some of the shows going on tonight at 6 o'clock, my favorite new band named Dirt Bike Boyfriend at Wusso's Concert Cafe at 6 o'clock. At the Spirit of the Lake Community Arts, Jake Searle. Jen West is at the Owls Club at 6:15. The Adjustments at 6:30 at Zeitgeist. Teatro, 7 p.m. at Spirit of the Lake Community Arts. Nolan Spellwood. Sacred Heart Music Center. Owls Club Big Band. Have you heard those guys?
Yeah.
Well, if they're got the Owls Club name, they got to be cool.
And if they're cool, they got to be on this show.
We got to have them on the show.
Call the show.
Shane Nelson, he was one of our first musicians on the show. His band is at Wusso's Concert Cafe tonight at 7 o'clock and 7:15 at the Owls Club. Eddie Edition and Strike Point, 7:30 at Zeitgeist Teatro. But we're going to do better than that. We're not going to wait around for acts to appear. We've got 4 gentlemen here today. And if I could maybe call Don Johnson to the microphone and tell us a little bit about the history of the Duluth Harbor Masters.
Well, thanks for having us here, Paul. The Duluth Superior Harbor Masters started in 1953. Actually, there's one gentleman that's still around that was started about that time.
Really?
He's not singing with us actively right now, but we've all sang with him. We have people from Cloquet, Hermantown, Duluth, West Duluth. I'm the only one from Superior, and then we have our director comes down every week from Virginia. Paul knew our director, Steve Lepatka, at one time up in Virginia.
He was a massage therapist when I met him. Now he just does reflexology. He is one strong Finlander.
Yep. Yeah, he's our interim director. In case there's anybody out there that's looking for a a job that doesn't pay very well. We are.
That's how they got me on this job.
We are looking for someone to take over for the director. Steve would prefer to be singing full time, but he does an excellent job with directing. Dan McClelland, who is here today, also does some of the directing on a few things.
I believe when we used to drive down from the Iron Range, my hometown of Virginia, and the Queen City, that I believe I probably saw the Duluth Harbor Masters at a Duluth Home and Boat Show at some point. Does that make sense?
It's possible. I've only been with the Harbor Masters now for 11 years. Dan has been here a little bit longer than that. I don't know if he was at the boat show at all. We did play at the deck one time, or sing at the deck one time not too long ago for the North American Maple Syrup Producers Convention.
That sounds like a good gig.
Wow, you guys got that gig? Holy cow.
We sang there. We had a performance, and then we went around the tables and sang.
Was that another gig they refused to have you on, Chris?
Yeah.
I
got dumped for the Harbor Masters.
You haven't had waffles or pancakes since.
Well, we sang the Canadian national anthem for that one too, which helped to endear us to them. In fact, the middle third of the anthem was done in French. Well,
why don't we're speaking of Virginia, before I forget, if you're up in Virginia, the Queen City, make sure you stop by Flammers Bar, which was on the corner of Chestnut Street, which is the main drag, and 2nd Avenue. They just celebrated their 30th anniversary. I played there with Sonny Earl and Chris Mulkey. We just had a ball last summer. Cats Under the Stars will be starting their 50th anniversary there on that Friday of Land of Loon. I believe it's June 21st or so. But Flammers Bar is a great Iron Range bar, pull tabs, hockey memorabilia, and just a good vibe. And if Gary's working, or Pia the bartender, say hello from their buddy Paul Metsa. Flammers Bar, coolest bar on the Iron Range. Well, let's do this as long as we've got you gentlemen here. Let's hear a song. We'll go to break, and then we'll have you on for the rest of the hour on Stars Over the Prairie.
All right.
We're going to start with an 1899 song called My Wild Irish Rose.
All right. My Wild Irish Rose.
My wild Irish rose, the sweetest flower that grows. You may search everywhere, but none can compare with my wild Irish rose. My wild Irish rose, the dearest flower that grows. And someday for my sake, she may let me take the bloom from my wild Irish rose. My rose, the bloom from my wild Irish rose. Wild Irish rose.
That is absolutely wonderful.
Standing ovation.
That is just amazing. That is the Duluth Superior Harbor Masters. They will be performing with acts for the benefit for Ukraine on Wednesday, May 14th at the Sacred Heart Music Center. Other acts include myself, Mark and Nancy Rubin, Aaron Aldrich, Christopher David Hansen, John Ward, Lori Hatton, Whiskey River, Timothy Martin, Brianna Tepler, Sonia Martin, Liesl Wilson, the Mann Brothers, Superior Siren, George Ellsworth, and the Climbs. Man, that's just great. We're going to have them on for the rest of the hour on Stars Over the Prairie. Now we're going to hear from some of our sponsors who help keep the show on the air.
Gray Wolf Lodge, located on gorgeous Pelican Lake in beautiful Orr, is the great getaway in northern Minnesota. Featuring affordable, modernized cabins that rent by the week or even a few days, Gray Wolf Lodge is your place to treat the family or just yourself for a relaxing time away from it all. With great fishing, yoga classes, massage, boat rentals, a sandy beach, a common gathering area with a fire pit, and the gorgeous and rustic Gray Wolf Lodge, hosts John and Carol have thought of everything for your unforgettable stay. Give them a call at 1-800-840-9653 or go to graywolflodge.com to see all that they have to offer. Gray Wolf Lodge, your home away from home in the North Woods.
I'm Joe, and I had Z LASIK at Weiss Eye Center. The funny thing is I absolutely hated buying a contact solution because I thought it was such a racket having to spend $15 on a bottle of contact solution. And that's just one thing, is just not having to buy that stuff anymore, or glasses or anything like that. For me, it's mainly just I like to hunt and fish and everything, and not having to bring that stuff along, especially in the winter when I go ice fishing and stuff. It gets a pain when I get to the end of the day taking my contacts out, and then if a rattle reel goes off in the middle of the night, I'm fumbling for my glasses to go and try and catch a fish.
Weiss Eye Center is the only clinic to offer blade-free Z LASIK in the Northland. To find out more and to arrange your free consultation, call 218-625-1917 today or visit weisseyecenter.com for more information. Weiss Eye Center. See the best.
If you're looking for a great hang in downtown Duluth, I highly suggest Carmody's Irish Pub. They're located at 308 East Superior Street, open Tuesday through Sunday. The host and hostess are Eddie and Liz. Eddie is a retired Chicago cop. If he happens to be in the club when you're there, talk to him. He's got more stories than I do. They've also got a great jam session every Tuesday night from 8 to 11 with Bruce Woodman. So if you're a musician, tried and true, that has been out there playing and just want to go try out some new stuff, go down and hang out with Bruce and the crew. Or if you're just up and coming, bring your horn or your stringed instrument or just want to sing. Go sit in with Bruce Woodman every Tuesday night at Carmody's Pub, 308 East Superior Street.
River City Records and Books, voted Best Record Store of 2023 in the Twin Ports by the Duluth Reader, has in stock thousands of new and used vinyl records, from classic rock to punk, grunge and metal, to hip-hop, rap, jazz, reggae, and dub. Thousands of books, CDs, DVDs, Blu-ray, and VHS. Also a large selection of cassettes, comic books, and music magazines. Stop in and see them at 1814 West Superior Street in the friendly Lincoln Park Craft District. Open 9 to 7, 7 days a week.
Every day deserves a superior beer. Earth Rider Brewery's decorated brewers hand-select hops that lend citrus notes to the crisp and easy-drinking Superior Pale Ale. Visit Earth Rider Brewery's Cedar Lounge Tap Room on the Working Harbor in Superior for their award-winning flagship and seasonal brews on tap and to go. To find out much more about Earth Rider Brewery events, join the mailing list and locate Earth Rider Beer near you at earthrider.beer. Hold fast.
Stars over the prairie, KDL Radio.
And now, here's Paul Metsa.
Here I am, and that was my friends, the Divas, the Andrews Sisters of the Iron Range. We've got the Duluth Superior Harbor Masters on. My mother loved barbershop music, so when I bumped into Don, who was in, about 6 weeks ago, I think, because you were part of the 12 Angry Men, the theatrical performance over in Superior, you gave me your card and said, hey, I'm with the Duluth Superior Harbor Masters, and told me what you did, and I said, I love that stuff, so we finally got you on. Don, why don't you introduce the other gentlemen who are with you here today?
All right, I'll introduce them. Our baritone right now is John Hendrickson. He's from Esco. I missed Esco when I was saying we were all from. John has been with us for a short time, but he's He's the only one of the bunch of us that is actually sort of a musician, I think.
What's your story, John?
Just been doing music for a very, very long time, and it's more of a hobby than anything, but all different kinds of stuff. I'm part of a country show at Solway Town Hall, which is actually on today from 2 to 5.
Really?
Yeah, and I'll be filling in for the bass player, so keep your fingers crossed.
What kind of country music?
It is old classic country. I would say
best.
Things from maybe the 40s through the early, maybe even to the late 60s.
Well, you're from Esco. You've had to play at the Buffalo House at some point.
Oh, no. I play at a lot of assisted living places and things like that, but I don't play professional venues at all.
Well, good for you. I'm going to be doing a thing at the Northwood Estates on May 6th, early in the afternoon at a nursing home gig. I've actually done quite a few of those over the years. I enjoy them quite a bit. In fact, Chris, you'll love this. I was playing, this was 20 years ago now. I was playing some club in the northern suburbs, and the owner, this Greek guy, said, "Hey, there's a bus coming in of senior citizens." So it was 20 years ago, something at senior citizens. Geez, I can play some of my Fats Waller and Duke Ellington and that old jazz, 30s and 40s jazz stuff I know. So they came in. There was about 15 or 20 of them, and they were sitting around, and I'm playing, Honeysuckle Rose and Ain't Misbehavin', and this guy comes up to me and says, "Do you know any Chuck Berry?" Even the senior citizens are rocking these days.
They love the rock and roll.
All right, so who else do we got? Let's introduce yourself. And
our next person here is Pastor Sean Coos from Duluth. He is pastor at Our Savior's Lutheran Church and Concordia Lutheran Church in Superior. So I'll let him go.
It's always good to have a pastor in the band.
I got to keep an eye on these guys.
Do you have to check the lyrics then? Is that what?
Got to keep them flying straight here. So.
And where are you from originally?
Oh, I grew up outside of Chicago suburbs. Served the congregation down in Nebraska. Came across a barber shop and said, I probably could use some help with my voice. I'm in the pulpit every week, so I've been singing ever since then. So.
Now, is being a preacher a little bit like, Chris, you would know this better than anybody, AM radio DJs? Like you're in Fargo this year, then you're in Missoula, Montana.
That's any DJ.
Yeah.
I've lived all over the place. Believe me, we were just talking about moving not too long ago, and I have stuff from several radio moves.
Yeah. Is that being preached the same way, or have you just had a handful of places you've served?
Oh, I've just served at a few congregations now. So.
Okay. Now, who's just the best-looking guy of the bunch over here? Who's that guy?
The next guy here is Dan McClelland. He sings lead for us, and he's from Duluth, retired as a landscape architect, I believe it was.
Well, Dan, get up to the mic and tell us your story.
Thank you, Don. Well, 2005 is when I started with the Harbor Masters, and I didn't think about doing it until I heard from my sister-in-law in Kansas City that she had heard barbershop music in Kansas City. Lots of good music in Kansas City.
Yeah.
In Kansas as well. So I found out about it, started. The man who'd been there since 1953 was our leader. And
what was his name? His
name was Curly Erickson.
Curly Erickson?
He had the worst comb over in town.
I think everybody named Curly has a bad comb over.
Yeah, I think that's how they get their name.
I think so. Anyhow, he encouraged me to stay, and that helped a lot.
Tell us a little bit about your landscape architecture background.
I would say that when I started school in 1963, University of Illinois, the program in landscape architecture looked really interesting to me. So that's where I got my start with it. And then the Army got me for a while in 1968 and came back and finished up my degree at Kansas State University, which also has a good program.
Did you serve in Vietnam?
Yes, I did.
Wow.
Then
thank you for your service, by the way.
You're welcome
thank
for
you.
that. I appreciate that. Then I came to Duluth in 1975. Started a family. My wife teaches school, and so school district for her, working for architectural resources for me. So the extension of the highway from Mesaba Avenue to 10th Avenue East was the most work that I did from 75 to 80, working with the landscape architect there. And then eventually a little job with the Forest Service, a couple of temporary jobs with Superior National Forest. And then I got on to UMD. 18 years at Glensheen as the curator of grounds, and then 6 years at the university itself as gardening. So that's my experience until 2012.
I did a wedding at Glensheen, of course, where the horrific murders took place way back. What was the early mid-70s, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
What was Virginia? Help me out here. The woman that was murdered, Virginia Congdon.
Yeah.
And Miss Piatola, her nurse, were murdered, and they didn't talk about it for years.
Right, we didn't.
You know, and but I went there. Now they do. Now they'll say this is where it went down. This is where it happened.
They talk about some of it. There's a lot that they still kind of avoid out of respect for the family.
Yeah, but when I was walking around, I played a wedding there for my friend John Hall, and his lovely wife Lynn, and their daughter was getting married. And I was kind of rooting around there on the first floor, and I was looking at the windows kind of on the west side where the forest was. Yeah. And I'm going, in my mind, that's where Roger Congdon crawled in through. I don't know for sure. Do you know anything about that?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't.
Are you sworn to secrecy?
I'm from that group. Are
you sworn to secrecy?
Well, there were grandchildren still alive in Duluth.
Yeah.
And Congdons. And so we didn't talk about it
as
a result of that.
Still quite a bit
So
of
the
family.
museum is a very historic site. And
it's a beautiful... tell us a little bit about Glensheen. Who designed that?
Well, it was designed by the state architect, and landscape was done by Levitt and Morell and Nichols, and the work was done in 1905 to 1908, and in 1902, Elizabeth visited the site, and she said that Scandinavian cemetery would be real quiet neighbors, and that's what's still there today, and that's one of the things that got written in her diary, and he kept a diary as well. But all of the construction from 1905 to 08 and moving in 1909 was done by Clarence Johnston as the architect. He was the state architect at the time and has done buildings down at Northrop Auditorium in Minneapolis on campus.
He's also done some things in Chicago. I think that's why they hired him.
I wouldn't doubt that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt that at all.
Is there still such a thing as a state architect?
I don't know.
Yes.
Good question.
Is there?
Yes.
There you go.
It's not something that it's not the way it used to be, where the state architect kind of had the see over of the whole state. Now it's more called in as needed.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, we could talk about architecture all day long, but I'd love to hear these four gentlemen sing another song for us. The Duluth Superior Harbor Masters playing along with a dozen acts Wednesday, May 14th, benefit for Ukraine. And what we will do, we'll take the third caller, and they can win a pair of front row tickets to the event at the Sacred Heart Music Center. What's the number, Chris?
218-722-0839.
Give that one more time.
218-722-0839.
Front row seats for the big show. What are we going to hear next, gentlemen?
This is another song to our sweethearts.
All right.
Let me call you sweetheart, I'm in love with you. Let me hear you whisper that you love me too. Keep the love
done. Yeah, that brings me back. My mom sang that. Grandpa and Grandma sang it. What? Let's go back to Don Johnson here. Don, you also you brought a couple of books that you're going to be donating to the Ukraine benefit. Is that Svarta? Is that how you pronounce that?
Svarta.
Svarta and Beyond. And also
Cripple Charlie.
Cripple Charlie. Tell us about your books.
Well, the Svarta and Beyond, the characters are real, but the story is entirely made up. It's about the farmer, a family moving from one farm to another in Sweden in the 1880s, and what it takes to build up a farm at the time. And the Cripple Charlie is the story of my grandfather. He came to the United States in 1886. I think one of the interesting things, he came in November of 1886. The Statue of Liberty was dedicated in October of 1886.
Wow.
And he would have been one of the first ones to see the Statue of Liberty. And it talks about him coming into northern Wisconsin, building the log house, and spending time. He was known as Cripple Charlie because he had rheumatoid arthritis quite bad. Right now, that term might be seen as a negative.
Right.
At that time,
it
was a positive because people were kind of impressed with what he could do in the condition he was in.
You know, it always blows my mind. Like all the Finlanders, my native people, he came in November. It's colder than hell. And he comes and goes, oh, yeah, it's 40 below. I'm staying here. But so then how big was your family then? Give us a little lineage and genealogy.
The family, my great-grandparents were in Sweden. They came over. My grandfather was the first to come over to the United States, and then his parents came over along with three brothers and three sisters. One brother stayed back in Sweden, but basically the book just kind of follows them around in their area of northern Wisconsin. It centers at a place called Timms Hill, which is the highest point in the state of Wisconsin. My grandfather built his log house.
I thought the highest point in Wisconsin was Molly's Bar back in the late 80s.
Yeah. Well, the Green Lantern was pretty high right alongside of it.
I love Superior. You live in Superior, right?
I live in Superior now, but I was born and raised south of Ashland, 100 miles is where the story takes place.
Yeah.
But I've lived in Superior, been around a lot of different jobs. Right now I'm delivering Meals on Wheels and doing some substitute teaching and doing a little theater work. And I'm looking for a full-time job so I can get a day off now and then.
You are a Renaissance man. We've got the Duluth Superior Harbor Masters on, not to be confused with the Harbor Monsters, which is arena football. What is the
much
Harbor
bigger
Monsters?
guys too?
Yeah.
Except for the pastor there.
All right. What are we going to hear, gentlemen?
Shine on me.
Shine on me.
Oh, shine on me in the morning, shine on me. Will the light in the lighthouse shine on me, shine on me in the evening, shine on me. I wonder if the lighthouse will shine on me. Will the lighthouse shine on me?
Very nice. It's been a while since I heard the little tuning whistle there. Get going before
this
they
reminds me, when I worked out on the East Coast in Maryland, we had the Chardonnaires because, we were along the beach, and they were called the Chardonnaires, and they did barbershop music very similar to yours.
Now, so how many performances will the Harbor Masters do in the course of a year?
How many shows?
Yeah.
Oh, I wish we could have 3, but we have 1 show a year. But we prepare for those. Pardon?
Our sing-outs.
Oh, we have sing-outs in the summer, and we have sing-outs in the winter. So they're like shows, they're performances. In the summer, we're singing to churches in Superior and Duluth and possibly in Cloquet. And in the winter, we're singing to assisted living places throughout the whole area. So those are shows.
Yeah, well, a gig's a gig is a gig is a gig.
I was just going to say, same thing.
We also go in to sing for Pearl Harbor Day and Veterans Day. We have a military theme for some of our shows on that. As far as an annual show, we're hoping right now our numbers are building up enough that we're hoping to get something going to have a big show next spring, but we don't know for sure yet.
There you go. You heard it here first.
Yeah. Well, we got to help you guys out whenever you decide that. How do we get, if somebody out there that's listening today would like to become a harbor master themselves, how would they reach out and get that done?
You call, my number is 715-392-1357 if you want to get a hold of me that way. Otherwise, you can go on Facebook. There's a Harbor Masters page on Facebook. We practice every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock at Kenwood Lutheran Church, just off of Arrowhead Road. If anybody is interested in coming and listening to us, singing along with us, we're open to any and all. Right now, our ages range. We have a couple of gentlemen that are. One is just turning 90 this year. Wow. Another one is 94.
So young guys.
Young guys. And our youngest run right now, I believe, just turned 40. So we're open for anyone that wants to sing. And you don't have to be a professional musician to come and join us. Very few of us are.
But this is a great way for somebody that maybe was in a choir in high school or in maybe in college that wants to continue.
Exactly.
Yeah, my background was a cappella choir in high school, and I followed my older brother, 3 years older, when he was president of the a cappella choir, and I worked my way up through madrigals, which was 4 parts of a cappella harmony, and so that's very similar to what we're doing now.
Very much.
We have quartets, and we also have octets, and it works very well for us. Thank you.
Before we get back with the Duluth Superior Harbor Masters, some great stuff going on for Homegrown. Beautiful festival here, rocking the Twin Ports for, about a week and a half, I guess. The Duluth Dolls tonight at 9:30, Studio 4. Nikki Lemire, she was just on a show a couple weeks ago. She's at the Morris Room. Also as part of the 9:30 show. 9:45, Boco Frequency is at Blacklist. Carmody Irish Pub, where I will be performing tomorrow from 4 to 6 solo. Tonight, Eddie and Liz are going to be hosting Sorrows Never Die. DJ Sox at Pizza Luce at 10 o'clock tonight. At the Duluth Flame Nightclub, Dead End Friends. And Gianni Cash at Sir Ben's on the Lake at 10 o'clock show tonight as part of Homegrown. All right, we got a winner. Robert Johnson, not the blues guy.
Johansson.
Oh, Johansson.
Yeah.
There we go. You've got terrible handwriting, Chris.
I'm sorry.
Robert Johansson, you are going to be front row at the Benefit for Ukraine on May 14th at the Sacred Heart Music Center We've got a great lineup, including my friends here, the Harbor Masters, myself, Mark and Nancy Rubin, Aaron Aldrich, Christopher David Hansen, John Warren Lorhan, Whiskey River, Timothy Martin, Brianna Tepler, Sonia Martin Diesel, Wilson, the Mann Brothers. I love those guys. They live in my neighborhood. George Ellsworth, who I play with every now and then, the Climbs, and, of course, my guests, the Duluth Superior Harbor Masters. Now, it is Pete Seeger's birthday today, so I thought maybe we could sing something that brings the great memory of Pete Seeger back, and we've got 2 minutes to do it. Can we get a little bit of This Land Is Your Land?
Yes.
We put him on the spot.
Sure we can.
But it's key.
This land is your land, this land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. Oh, we're not in the right key.
Nope.
This land is your land, this land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters, this land was made for you and me.
Nice job. Why don't
That was the single version, right?
Yeah. They're going to do the dance mix.
The dance mix when we go to break, yeah.
Why don't you, the Duluth, thank you so much for coming, gentlemen. Why don't, we're here on Stars Over the Prairie, sing us out to the break, and then we've got John Rosengren, author and columnist, and then after that, the last half of the 11 o'clock hour, we'll have the great J.B. Layton. Sing us out.
Oh, honey, honey, bless your heart. Oh, honey, that I love so well, so well. I've done been true, my gal, to you. You're the honey that I love so well. Little eyes, I love you, little eyes, I love you. Love you in the spring and in the fall. Honey, 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 little eyes, I love you. Little eyes, I love you. Love you best of all. Honey, 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 little eyes, I love you. Little eyes, I love you. Love you in the spring and in the fall. Honey, 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 little eyes, I love you. Little eyes, I love you.
Your Twin Ports home for Twins baseball. KDAL 103.9 W28 FBFM and 610 KDAL AM Duluth Superior, a Midwest communication station. Live, it Stars Over the Prairie with 8-time Minnesota Music Award-winning songwriter, musician, author, and historian Paul Metsa. Check out previous show podcasts at KDAL610.com. Now, here's Paul Metsa.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. It is going to be 65 degrees in the Zenith City by the Insalted Sea. It's
Isn't it tank top weather?
It's dog park weather.
Oh.
That's dog park weather. Mabel and Blue and I will be going to the DP. Oh, yeah, so I didn't tell you how much fun I had yesterday, Chris. I've been fortunate. I've gotten 2 arts grants. I got one from the Minnesota State Arts Board about in 2022, one from the Arrowhead Regional Arts Council up here. But have you ever tried to get a grant?
Yes.
The paperwork on it will drive a crazy man even crazier.
Yes.
And straight man absolutely bonkers. And so I started working on this to get an arts grant to take a little tour of working on a musical for my book with my book, Blue Guitar Highway, and the songs. So I started on it last week, and everything was cool. I was getting everything going there. You got to cross every T and dot every I. And
proper English and grammar, too.
Everything. And so I was filling in. So I was under the weather on Thursday. And so I was going to work on it most of Thursday. So I figured, well, I'll get up. You know, I felt a little better Thursday night, so I worked on it. Got up first thing, 7 o'clock Friday morning. Worked on it all day. It was due at 4:30. You have to press the send button by 4:29.
Yeah.
So I've got it all done. It's looking really good. I'm going all over the numbers, checking on my phone with the calculator, going over the numbers. They weren't adding up, getting it down. Oh, I'm almost done. 4:20, I think, I'm in good shape. I'm just going to double check everything and go back. Well, I should have pressed save instead of go back. Because when I pressed go back on the computer, all of the paperwork for the financial part of it, which is the most important part, disappeared into the ether. Haven't we all done that, though? Haven't we all lost something important on the computer?
Or look at my new tattoo and you send it to Mom.
Oh, yeah, right. Oh, yeah, there's a funny story there that I can't tell on the radio, but involves a friend of mine.
I'm so sorry that happened.
And the letter he thought he was sending to his friend in Los Angeles, but sent to his grandmother instead. But we won't get into that.
No.
Hey, we got Homegrown going on, and we're all about music here on Stars Over the Prairie. So, what is happening tonight? A bunch of stuff. Spirit of the Lake Community Arts. We've got Inga Anthionos coming up at Wooster's Concert Cafe. We have
There's quite a few still going on. A lot of people think that at the end it kind of dwindles, but that's not the case at all.
No, at 8:15 tonight at the Owls Club, the Humes. At Studio 4 at 8:30, the Body Electric Cabaret. Horseface, they want our show. They're Rangers at Zeitgeist tonight, part of the 8:30 show. 8:45 at Carmody's Pub. Slape, then 9 o'clock at Sir Ben's. We've got John Edwards. We had John on the show, great young musician. Sacred Heart Music Center, the Brazones. And then at the Duluth Flame Nightclub, as part of the 9 o'clock show, the Sidney Hansen Band.
Nice.
Our next guest, John Rosenberg, has written 12 books, many of them about baseball. He's a baseball fanatic, but has also been writing for different Twin Cities publications since he graduated from Wayzata High School in the mid-'80s. But he's also written for the Washington Post, the New Yorker, the New York Times, and others. He has a great article in the May-June issue of Minnesota Monthly about John Denver, the singer's roots in Minnesota, something he just stumbled on. So we're going to talk to John. He's going to tell us a little bit about the genesis of the story and a little bit about how the great John Rosengren, you can track him down at johnrosengren.net, got into writing. Fascinating guy. Here we go, John Rosengren. John, how are you this evening?
Hi, Paul. I'm good, thanks. Nice to chat with you.
Nice to chat with you. Let's talk a little bit before we get into the whole John Denver and Minnesota story. Tell us where John Rosengren came from and when did you start writing?
Well, I grew up west of Minneapolis in the suburbs in Plymouth and listened to John Denver during my youth in the 70s and started writing as a senior in high school for the Wayzata High School newspaper. And then my career took off from there.
Well, you've sure been a productive writer for sure. After you got out of high school, where did you end up? Did you write for any of the local rags in town? I
went to college at St. John's University and wanted to be a fiction writer. So after that, I moved to Paris for a year and wrote a collection of short stories that eventually was published called Life is Just a Party.
Wow.
I came back and kicked around and freelanced some for local publications. Twin Cities Business, Minnesota or Corporate Report, Twin Cities Reader, Minnesota Monthly, Minneapolis St. Paul Magazine, all the local, Highland Villager, Grand Gazette. And then I did a master's in creative writing at Boston University, and where I got to study with Saul Bellow. And then
wow.
That was a trip. And then I came back and taught for a few years at St. Thomas Academy and then jumped into the waters of full-time freelancing in 1998, and I haven't looked back. and written for a bunch of national publications as well as all the locals.
Did you ever get a chance over the years to work with my friend, the late great David Carr?
Absolutely. I didn't work with David. I knew him and met him a couple of times and was an admirer of his work. But I actually worked with his daughter recently. She made a documentary miniseries of one of my articles about a woman who murdered her husband in Blooming Prairie and then murdered a lookalike woman in Florida, the killer granny with a gambling problem, Lois Reese.
I had heard about that story. Which was it, Erin?
Yeah, Erin. Yeah.
I knew her, and she and her twin sister were just little girls. And I was a huge fan of Carr's. I met him in 83 or 84. We got to be very tight. He was kind enough. He wrote the foreword to my memoir, Blue Guitar Highway, that came out of the University of Minnesota Press in 2011. It's one of the greatest asks that were ever gifted me by the great David Carr. Well, Minneapolis St. Paul, over the years, has really had a vibrant a collection of great writers.
Yeah, quite a few have come through there. I really enjoyed working with Brian Anderson when he was there. Still miss him. And, of course, Minnesota Monthly as well has featured a lot of the local greats. Like Jim Thornton is one of my favorites from those days.
Mm-hmm. The guy I miss is Steve Perry.
Okay, yeah.
Steve was great. Bro Gilliard, yeah. I mean, it was an embarrassment of riches. So what was your first actual book that came out, John Rosengren?
Life is Just a Party, the collection of short stories, was my first book. And then I've done a novel called A Clean Heart and 8 nonfiction books as well. Probably the biggest or best known in these parts is called Blades of Glory. It's about a high school hockey powerhouse, Bloomington Jefferson. I spent a season with them. So it's kind of like Minnesota's Friday Night Lights.
Right. Well, that's a ballsy move. It's you can't be more of a writer. Nothing says you're a writer more than going to Paris right out of school and starting your career. So I commend you for that. Who are some of the authors and writers that you grew up with admiring that inspired you to become such a great writer yourself?
Well, thanks. Those are generous words. I'm not sure that description fits, or I've heard it other than out of yours and my mother's mouth. But Hemingway, of course, early on was a big influence, and one of the reasons that I wound up in Paris. J.D. Salinger, James Joyce, Scott Fitzgerald, they were all early influences. More recently, people like Toni Morrison or Philip Roth was an influence as well. But it's funny, that question always stumps me. Like when people say, "Who's your favorite writer?" I kind of my mind goes blank. I don't know if that happens with you. When people say, "Who's your favorite musician?" You're like,
Oh yeah, well, I can. There's no. It's like when people say, "Oh, he's the best musician." Well, no. There's. I could name 24 musicians off the top of my head that I've been listening to for years, but writing and music are really so intertwined in a way, the expression of the soul. But you have to know what you're doing, especially, musician. I'm kind of a folk and blues guy. I can wing it, but writers, you guys actually have to know punctuation, spelling, all that hard stuff.
Yeah, I like that stuff, the nuts and bolts of it. Yeah, Tolstoy is another writer who early on was a big influence. I liked the Russians too, Dostoevsky.
Wow.
Solzhenitsyn, but then and Chekhov, of course. But more recently, it seems like my favorite writers, whoever I'm reading at the moment.
What if I would go to John Rosengren's home? How many books would I see on the bookshelves that you actually read?
Most of them, the vast majority of them I've read, and a lot of them I took out from the library too. So They're not still in my shelves. But I was remarking the other day, my wife and I, we have books in every single room of our house. I mean, the bathrooms, the kitchen, everywhere. They're books all over. When we have bookshelves in a lot of the rooms, but it's like we both love to read, and so we collected a lot of books over the years.
Yeah, I've collected a lot. When I say that, I don't doubt that you haven't read them, but when I look around, I probably got 1,000 books here, and I read a lot of them several years ago, and there's so many I want to go back and reread, yet there's so many new books coming out. Man, I don't think there's anything greater for a kid than learning to love to read.
I'm sorry, was that a question?
No, it's just kind of a statement. But as one who's taught writing, what do you try to inspire in your students, John?
I think it's important to look closely at how the language is being used and to consider the nuances of words and their meanings, not just the denotations, but the connotations. Like one exercise I had my sophomores at St. Thomas Academy do was give me every word that means but or derriere or posterior or ass. And we wrote them all on the board, and then we talked about, okay, what situation would you use this word, and which situation would you use that word, and which words would you use with your mother, and which ones would you not use with your mother, and why? And I think that helps us understand the texture of language. And it's like if you've studied a foreign language, right now I'm trying to learn Spanish, and I can say things in a very simple way, kind of like with one word for each thing I want to say. But in English, I have the facility to know more of the context of the words and what they might mean in different situations. And I really do believe there's one, le mot juste for each situation, or generally there's a word that's better than another to express a certain thought. And so writing is a chance to play with that and find those and seek out those words. And so anyway, I believe it needs to happen with great care if one's going to really practice and master the craft of writing.
Have you ever dipped into writing any poetry?
Yes, that no one should ever see.
Oh, that's funny. I appreciate your honesty.
It's born of embarrassment.
Oh man, what poets do you like to read though?
I like Pablo Neruda. My wife is Chilean, and also Federico Garcia Lorca.
Yes,
I've read some of his lately. My daughter's living in Spain, so it's like I kind of gravitate toward these. But John Berryman, I just saw a poem of his the other day, and then even people like Mary Oliver. I mean, her poems are so accessible, and yet they have a deep meaning. And then I really like Robert Frost. I think he's kind of underrated because his poems seem simple, like you can understand them. But there's such upon examination, I think there's a much deeper meaning to most of his poems, and many of them have stuck with me. I think Bob Dylan, great songwriter, but also a qualified poet. And it's funny, I was just having this conversation with someone earlier. I like a lot of songwriters for their poetry, Paul Simon, James Taylor, Jackson Brown. And so I find poetry in a lot of different places.
Well, and Bob Dylan actually went down on a road trip and searched out Robert Frost.
Did he really? I didn't know that story.
Yeah. Well, we are going to talk about another songwriter that has some deep Minnesota roots, and that's why we're talking with John Rosengren today. A fella by the name of John Denver, and if you were alive in the 70s and had your radio on, you heard John Denver. When did you get turned on to John Denver, John?
I can't remember a specific date, but certainly it was during the 70s when I was a kid in grade school, and those songs were on constantly, it seems. It was John Denver and the Eagles. They were filling the airwaves. And there were those happy, feel-good songs, Sunshine on My Shoulders, Annie's Song. And so those, I just remember singing those and singing along. It's like knowing all the words to those songs because I listened to them and enjoyed them, and they played in my head frequently.
I had an experience a couple of years ago. I live in Duluth, and I hooked up with my harmonic player, Sonny Earl. We had a gig up here with his wife, Lisa, and a couple of Duluth natives. And we were out after the gig having a couple of cocktails, and so we had a designated driver, and we had a most amazing 5-minute ride from the west end of Duluth to West Duluth. Everybody singing along, remembering every word to Take Me Home, Country Roads.
Mm-hmm.
Even though none of us had probably sung it in 20 years, that stuff is imprinted in the DNA in your brain,
Right. It won't go away, for better or worse.
Let's listen to Take Me Home, Country Roads, and then be back and talk to Mr. Rosengren about how what inspired him to write this article about John Denver in the May-June article of Minneapolis-St. Paul magazine. Yeah, and that's actually the Minnesota Monthly. I said Minneapolis-St. Paul magazine by mistake because it was just one of those days.
Right.
Hey, but he had mentioned Bob Dylan, and I want to tell you, we got Dylan Days coming up. We're in the middle of Homegrown, but I'm doing a special show at a special theater on Tuesday, May 20th. Salute to Bob Dylan, featuring myself, Paul Metsa, and Sonny Earl, and very special guest, Greg Inhofer. Greg played on all 5 tracks from Dylan's best-selling record, Blood on the Tracks, when he recorded 5 of those songs in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in two cold December nights in 1974. So it's going to be a concert and conversation. We're going to be playing Dylan songs that have inspired him, some songs off Blood on the Tracks, and we're going to be talking about Bob Dylan at the Alhambra Theater, which is reopening, a gorgeous theater that was originally opened in 1913. I don't know how long it ran for, but it's been dark for years, and it is going to be reopening, and it's absolutely gorgeous. The man in charge is the great Bob Boone from the West Theater. So I think they're opening on May 15th with other events. They've got a cool bar. It's like walking back in time. But my salute to Bob Dylan will be May 20th with Sonny Earl and Greg Inhofer, 8:30 at Alhambra Vaudeville Theater, next to the West Theater in West Duluth.
Let's take a commercial break, and we will be back with more of your interview.
I'm Lucas, and I had Z-LASIK at Weiss Eye Center. Went great. Little to no pain yesterday. Surgery went great. Everything else went home, took a nap, woke up, and haven't really had any pain since. Everybody was super nice and talked you through every step of the way, and I barely had to ask any questions because they knew what to say. They filled it all in. For me, it'll just be snowmobiling's my big one. I try to do a lot of riding in the winter. I farm in the summer, so this year was a big difference where a couple of times I had to borrow somebody's helmet so I put my glasses on and ride because just the weather conditions and everything else out there riding blind. So I'm really excited for that. It's well worth the money, and it's going to change my life for a long time, I'll tell you that.
Weiss Eye Center is the only clinic to offer blade-free Z-LASIK in the Northland. To find out more and to arrange your free consultation, call 218-625-1917 today or visit weisseyecenter.com for more information. Weiss Eye Center. See the best.
Gray Wolf Lodge, located on gorgeous Pelican Lake in beautiful Orr, is the great getaway in northern Minnesota. Featuring affordable, modernized cabins that rent by the week or even a few days, Gray Wolf Lodge is your place to treat the family or just yourself for a relaxing time away from it all. With great fishing, yoga classes, massage, boat rentals, a sandy beach, a common gathering area with a fire pit, and the gorgeous and rustic Gray Wolf Lodge, hosts John and Carol have thought of everything for your unforgettable stay. Give them a call at 840-9653 or go to GrayWolfLodge.com to see all that they have to offer. Gray Wolf Lodge, your home away from home in the North Woods.
If you're looking for a great hang in downtown Duluth, I highly suggest Carmody's Irish Pub. They're located at 308 East Superior Street, open Tuesday through Sunday. The host and hostess are Eddie and Liz. Eddie is a retired Chicago cop. If he happens to be in the club when you're there, talk to him. He's got more stories than I do. They've also got a great jam session every Tuesday night from 8 to 11 with Bruce Woodman. So if you're a musician, tried and true, that has been out there playing and just want to go try out some new stuff, go down and hang out with Bruce and the crew. Or if you're just up and coming, bring your horn or your stringed instrument or just want to sing. Go sit in with Bruce Woodman every Tuesday night at Carmody's Pub, 308 East Superior Street.
River City Records and Books, voted best record store of 2023 in the Twin Ports by the Duluth Reader, has in stock thousands of new and used vinyl records, from classic rock to punk, grunge, and metal, to hip-hop, rap, jazz, reggae, and dub. Thousands of books, CDs, DVDs, Blu-ray, and VHS. Also a large selection of cassettes, comic books, and music magazines. Stop in and see them at 1814 West Superior Street in the friendly Lincoln Park Craft District. Open 9 to 7, 7 days a week.
You're listening to Stars Over the Prairie with Paul Metsa. The phone lines are open. 218-722-0839.
This is who I am, and I am strong.
All right, we've got the great GB Layton on the phone, digging a little bit of his music there. GB, I know it's early for you, but how are you this morning?
I'm doing good. It's about 10, 15 degrees warmer than it was in Virginia last night.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You're in my hometown. How did that show go?
Yeah, it was good. It was fun. You know, we warmed up the fabulous armadillos there, and it was a great dance party, so it was really fun.
Well, you've been rocking Minnesota and places beyond for years and years and years.
Yeah.
When did you actually, GB's got a great show. He's always puts on a powerful rock and roll experience, whether he's solo or with his band, and he'll be playing at the West Theater on Friday, May 16th. But when did you actually put on the guitar and start playing in public, GB?
I think it was 1989, 1990, yeah, something around there. I started down at that Valley Pizza in Dinkytown.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, played for pizza. And whatever they would stick, they would stick dollar bills up in the ceiling, you know, so you could go around and get them, yeah. But that was where I started, yeah, pretty much. And then a lot of VFWs, you know, 4 45-minute sets, you know.
Oh, 4:40, oh, yeah. The days
remember those?
Oh, my God, yes, I do, unfortunately. That's why I remember them so well. That's why I don't play them anymore.
Yeah, exactly. When I could stop and do that, I stopped right away. Yeah.
Oh man, that's a long night.
Yeah, it is. You know, I'll got to do the first set over again at the end.
Oh yeah.
You know,
I remember there was a guy named Dean Carr, GB Layton. He was a really great acoustic steel string guitar player. He used to hang out at Palmer's Bar, and he used to walk around and he'd have be drinking his beer and filing his nails. He had a really great right hand, really good classical style. And he looked kind of like a magician. He had just total beatnik cat. And I remember him telling me once, he goes, you know, Paul, he goes, no musician worth his salt should ever have to play a first set.
There you go.
Just get right to the second set, do the encore, and you're out of there.
There you go.
You know, back in the day, guys like, you know, Roy Acuff and things, the headliner, some of these guys, the headliner used to open the show. So they do their, you know, 8 or 9 o'clock, you know, do an hour, get the hell off, and then put the opening act on after them, which I think is a brilliant idea. Now that you're becoming an august rock and roll gentleman, GB, you might consider that yourself.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't mind doing that, you know. I mean, really, it's like my audience has grown up with me, so we're all kind of the same age, you know, and it's like they like this 8 to 11 thing a lot better now. after COVID, it kind of went to that, and there's still a few bars that go till 1:30 or so, but otherwise, yeah, it's just early, and I always thought that would be great to like do the dance music after we're done, and the band could hang out, you know, and so we're putting our stuff away, talk to everybody, you know, and we're still there instead of, you know, kicking everybody out right after the show.
Well, you could be like our mutual friend Bobby Vandell when he used to play with Mambo's Combo. He got done with his gig at Bunkers, and then he'd put on his bathrobe, start walking around the bar, hitting on women, I think. But Bobby owned that place. Speaking of Bunkers, do you still play Bunkers, GB?
I do, yeah, I do. About once every month, every other month or so. Friday or Saturday now, but not a weekly thing like I used to do. I did 14 years.
Yeah, 14 years.
Of Wednesdays, yeah.
You know, it's funny. I mean, you ruled that place. It was GB Layton and Bunkers were synonymous. I remember when I came back from New York City, I think I came back in the summer of '96, and I was starting to play around, and I hadn't played in a couple years in town, so I was on, I think that was officially my third comeback, and I'm on about my fifth up here in Duluth now. But I remember I got Tuesday nights. Jackie and James booked me at Tuesday nights for a while at Bunkers, and I put it in the paper because a lot of like your crowd was younger than mine, and the crowd itself was younger than I used to be. And I remember I told Jackie to put the ad in the paper. Paul Metsa group. I think I was going by Paul Metsa and the Naughty Pines back then. And that was Naughty.
Yeah, that posters are down in the basement, I think.
Oh, cool.
Bunkers right now. Yeah.
And then I think that we used the line in the City Pages ad, Paul Metsa and the Naughty Pines, like GB Layton, only older. Because you were the big rock and roll star.
But more hair. You had more hair.
Oh, man. So now, how many gigs have you ever sat down with, put all your calendars together and figure how many shows you've actually played professionally over the years?
I haven't, but I have every year written down and the money I made. So someday I'm going to do that, look at it and
now,
count it all up and see.
As we know, and we don't have to talk particular numbers, how does the money look 20 years ago to the money today? Because I'll tell you what, I mean, and I'm not going to speak any numbers, I was making the same, as a solo, I was making the same money in 1985 that I will make at any gigs I'm doing up here solo.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, I make more, too. I make more, too. Don't get me wrong, but I'm saying, really, musicians have been making $75 to $50 to $75 to $150 a night, per gig for 40 years.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, luckily, I got my band up a little more than that.
Yeah,
so
no, I'm sure.
But it's just it kind of depends. Bunkers, is turning into a young place again, and it's really it's fun, but it's almost frightening too, because it's like, oh God, I'm the old man up here now, and all these college kids, they're swarming on Washington Avenue. But again, they come in early, they leave at 11 and walk down the street to a dance club, and it's like. Right.
Yeah, by the way, the word is experienced, GB. The word is experienced, not old man, experienced.
There you go, experienced, yes.
Now,
I know what I'm doing now.
Now, GB, I know you and I, it was years ago, we both played Grandma's Marathon in Canal Park. You've done that several times over the years.
I did a lot of years, yeah. I think, I want to say almost, probably 14 to 17 years, I think. They put me in the Hall of Fame, Grandma's Hall of Fame. And
Scott Keenan was a big fan of yours, I remember.
Yeah. Scott was I liked that when he was there, yeah.
Have you ever ran the marathon, GB?
Oh, no. You know what? The first time I ever played Grandma's Marathon, we had to walk over, from the hotels and do the afternoon show in the front end. when I saw people and how they were walking, I was like, I will never run a marathon in my life.
The last year I played there was this guy who was one of the last guys just slowly trudging over the finish line. I mean, there was just a handful. And I looked and I go, that's Mr. Wally, my 8th grade math teacher, who I hadn't seen in 50 years. But
oh, wow.
What a strong feeling.
Yeah, we were at a hotel there right on the Canal Park there, and me and Luke, my guitarist at the time, we went and took a hot tub, and there was a gentleman in the hot tub, and he looked like he was from South Africa or something, you know, like that, and he had an accent, and we said, oh, did you run today? He goes, yeah, I run. How'd you do? He goes, I won. Wow. You're in a hot tub at 11, and everyone's still coming in, and it's like, you know, he won the thing. It's like, wow.
Well, I hosted the music for a long time down at Grandma's, and the Kenyan runners would come out, and, you know, they'd get some special treatment and go backstage and everything. And you'd be talking to them. They look like it was a day in the park. They took their dog for a walk or something.
Oh yeah. They get to shower. Everyone else is in tinfoil and just, you know, trying to
shaking like a leaf.
They're already eating lunch and having drinks.
They're like in a suit. Yeah.
You know, when I started, Chris Allen he knows you, GB. I think you guys were talking when he was on a phone call. He's been with me since the show was on there. St. Erho's Day, March 16, 2024. But Chris told me that he ran the marathon, that you did the width, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I ran 4 marathons. They were all 0.1 miles. So I won one of them, and I came in second. So
GB Layton, you've always had great bands. Who you bringing up to the West Theater?
I'm bringing the band up. We're going to kind of do an unplugged thing, I think, you know.
Oh, cool.
But it's going to be a full band, yeah. So looking forward to it.
Name some of your players. I haven't seen you in a while. I'm sure I know some of your guys.
I have Ryan Inselman on drums, Adam Daniel on keyboards, Smokey D on bass, Kirk Humbert on electric guitar, Tony Kamana is back on percussion, and I just hired a violin player, Natalie, and so it's nice to have, because Adam does a lot of stuff on his own too, my keyboard player. So when he's gone, it's nice to have that violin in there. It can add a lot.
Yeah, well, that's a nice touch to.
It is, yeah. Well, I've always liked that in my band. It's just hard to find them. So
yeah, how many? How many shows a year are you playing now, GB Layton?
Yeah, not as much as I used to. You know, I kind of got to a point where, you know, when I was struggling with drinking and, you know, all that stuff, and just I figured there's some bars that just made me want to drink.
Yeah, right. Totally get it.
And it's like, so I just said, you know what? I'm not going to these places just to make money. I'm gonna just pick and choose the places I want to play, and if they're bigger shows, great. You know, but yeah, I don't do as much as I used to. You know, I mean, back in the day, I've 19 out of 21 days, you know, straight.
Oh, yeah.
A month, yeah. Crazy.
Well, we were all young bucks at one point, right?
Oh, yeah, yes, exactly.
I have a great story to share about GB. So I was interviewing him on the radio on the morning show I worked on, and I asked him if there was anything that he wanted, I would get it for him and bring it that night to Grandma's Marathon. And GB said, new socks. I love putting on new, clean socks. So I wound up talking to his guitar player and found out the kind of socks he likes, and I bought him a whole huge one of those monster packs and brought it to him on stage.
You know, if I would have known you, Chris, in '85 when I was playing in Duluth, and you were asked to bring some stuff to Paul Metsa in '85, it would have been a completely set of items.
Kind of like what I brought for Gary Allen.
Hey, GB Layton, so nice to chat with you. GB and the band will be at the West Theater, beautiful place. Of course, what I said, I'll be at the Alhambra, right next door to the Vaudeville Theater on May 20th with my Bob Dylan tribute with Sonny Earl. And Greg Inhofer.
And I'm also
go ahead.
Going to be 4th of July in 2 harbors, too. So
couple of harbors.
There more.
Love and Lake County.
Yeah.
Couple of harbors.
Love and Lake County.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, GB, maybe we'll see if we can get you on the air and play a couple tunes next time you're through the area.
I would love that. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's great talking to you again. It's been a long time. But
always,
hopefully I'll see you next Friday.
Also, I'm coming down. I got to come down and say hi for sure.
Perfect. Cool.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
All right. I always love spending time with him. He's a great guy.
Oh, he's been through a lot. You know, he has had some severe health problems, got through it with the flying colors, overcame some of his bad habits. No, he's a great guy. He's a really beloved character. Now we're going to get back to my interview with John Rosengren, author and columnist, who wrote a great article about John Denver in the new issue, Minnesota Monthly, on Stars Over the Prairie. Our guest is writer and author John Rosengren. Grew up in the western suburbs of Minneapolis and has a really prolific career. Has a great new article in Minnesota Monthly magazine, the May and June issue, about John Denver. Mr. Rosengren, how did John Denver, besides hearing him in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s through today, what inspired you to write the article?
Well, I came across a photo of John Denver playing Edina High School in 1969, and I thought, what the heck? And I'd heard that he'd lived here in the Twin Cities for a period, but I didn't know much of the history of it, really. So I started delving into it, and I was fascinated with all these ties that I found to Minnesota. I mean, I'd heard the story, like probably many people had, that he met Annie, the woman he married, at Gustavus when he did a concert there at the Chad Mitchell Trio. But that was about all I knew of the story. And so as I dug into it, I realized, they'd met that night. He had talked to her in the student union after the show and had been smitten by her, but she was sort of turned off, thought he was a bit pompous. And so then she ended up, just kind of dismissing him. But he wrote her a fan letter like 3 weeks later. And, that just kind of struck me as funny that here's this singer, songwriter, musician, artist, guy who went on to become a celebrity, writing this girl from St. Peter, Minnesota, a sophomore in college, a fan letter. Anyway, they ended up meeting up again when he came back to Mankato for another concert. He invited her to the show. She came. They had their first date. And then he fell in love, and he was touring around the country, but he made Minneapolis when he was doing this tour, and they're traveling. And so anyway, just from there, I discovered all these other details that I found fascinating and thought, I got to write this article.
Well, I had heard the name Deutschendorf for years because that was John Denver's original name. But back in the day, did you actually find an Edina phone book with his name, address, and phone number?
Well, I came across a record of, yes, he was listed as H.J. Deutschendorf Jr. when he lived with Annie shortly after they were married in the Brookside Court Apartments. And what I loved about discovering that was that I know where those are. I mean, if you take 44th West, where it tees at Brookside, in Edina, just past Highway 100, just west of Highway 100, they're the Brookside Court Apartments. And I'd known those and where they were, but I had never realized that John Denver had lived there at one point with Annie. And so it was kind of fun to discover that and see that, he'd been listed as H.J. Deutschendorf in the phone book. And, I mean, he even described it as like this, very staid suburban development where they chose to live instead of in a more fringe area like Dinkytown in the countercultural, the countercultural headquarters or ground zero for the 60s, 70s here in the Twin Cities.
Do you know where Denver originated from?
I think he was born in New Mexico, and then his dad was a military guy, and so they moved around quite a bit during his childhood. So he sort of had this nomadic existence, and which was what, again, drew me to this story that for a while he was anchored here in Minnesota. And I think the other thing that struck me about that is, he seems synonymous with Colorado, Rocky Mountain High and Starwood and Aspen and those songs that, just fix him in Colorado. But to learn that he'd been in Minnesota and thought of this as home, and this that struck me as unusual and surprising, and something I wanted to learn more about.
I'll take a little left turn here, John Rosengren. So you found the Brookside apartment complex where John and Annie lived. Now, have you, over the years, like, for example, John Berryman is buried in the cemetery right off Cedar Avenue. Do you, in your research and your travels over the years, go to these places like Hemingway's home in Key West, or to see Berryman's grave? Do you take any of those treks?
Well, actually, a few years ago, I wrote an article at Ernest Hemingway being treated at the Mayo Clinic for his depression, and I got fascinated by the final years of his life. So I did go out to Ketchum, Idaho, where he's buried, and I wrote an article for Artful Living magazine recently about his lasting legacy, 60 years later in Ketchum, Sun Valley. But generally I don't go visit graves. I tend to, I'll visit where people lived and worked if I'm writing a book about them or a lengthy article. But I'm not one of those who goes to visit grave sites and pay homage to people.
Right. Leave a pen there. I've left a guitar pick at Elvis's grave in Graceland, but that's just me.
That's classic. I love that.
You know what? I got to tell you a funny story. If you ever do go to Graceland, and I highly recommend it. I mean, just being in the Jungle Room, where Elvis actually did some recording, but he had his TV set up, and it was, just classic late 60s, early 70s, the swinging 60s and 70s. But when you go out to the back yard, there was Lisa Marie had a swing set there. And then not too far from the swing set it was an old home. I believe the home was built in the late 1800s. They had a room where they used to hang the meat. And they, Elvis and Sonny and Red and the boys turned that into a target practice rooms. So they hung up targets. And they were all packing heat back then, playing pistols. But I was doing a little research, and I went to the swing set of Lisa Marie, and there's a couple of bullet holes in there from when the boys were shooting target practice. There must have been something ricocheted. Fortunately, Lisa Marie wasn't on the swing set at the time.
Yeah, no kidding. Can you imagine?
I love that stuff. So, John, let's get back to the article you wrote for Minnesota Monthly, John. Did you, while you were writing it, did you go back and start to revisit those songs?
Oh, I did. I listened to a lot of his music then, especially some of the early stuff, because his first several albums he wrote while living here. And so I went back and listened to, Rhymes and Reasons and some of the others that were... Take Me Tomorrow, John Denver Sings. It was just fun to listen to those, that old stuff, some of the deep cuts.
When I was reading your article, that I highly recommend everybody get a copy of Minnesota Monthly and check out John Rosengren's article on John Denver. I remember the Sheraton Hotel. That I think they knocked it down in about 86 or 87. It was right down, not too far off Hennepin, right on Washington Avenue. And according to your article, Denver played a little club in there called the Gollywog Pub?
The Gollywog Lounge. Isn't that a great name? The Gollywog Lounge?
Oh, I'd like to have a margarita there at that happy hour.
Yeah, and their tagline was "No cover, no minimum, No dull moments.
I love it. Well, there was a place also, Charlie's Cafe Exceptionnel, that had music and of course fine dining, but another place called Freddy's, which was downtown. And there's a couple of great stories about when comedian Lenny Bruce came and played there. I believe it was not long after he got busted in San Francisco for obscenity. But it's and then you had 15th and Nicollet. You had the Flame Cafe, which Waylon Jennings, Johnny Cash, and others hung out in, and I believe the Gangster Kid Can had maybe partial silent ownership in that. But how then, of course, you had the Leamington and the Curtis, but really how vibrant downtown Minneapolis was over the years. Do you remember when you were old enough to go to lounges and bars, about spending any time in downtown Minneapolis, John?
It was more during the era of Prince. That was when I was in college, and so First Avenue, back around '84 and Purple Rain, that was the place to be. And so it was that different, a new era of music. But yes, those days were heady and fun.
Well, I've had Steve McClellan, who ran First Avenue for years, booked over 14,000 shows there. He lives in Cloquet now. I see him every now and then. I've had him on my radio show up in Duluth called Stars Over the Prairie. And it's really, all you have to do is go look at the stars on the wall to see what an amazing reservoir of music that First Avenue has been and continues to be. Right. John Rosengren, when you're writing, do you listen to music, or what like you wake up in the morning, what is the John Rosengren as the writer? What does your day look like?
Well, I tend to write my journal and with my coffee, and I've stopped reading the news first thing in the morning. I found that's not a good way to start the day any longer. So I write my journal, and I have my coffee and cereal, and then I walk the dog, and then I get to my office and sit down and try to start writing. And I do listen to music when I'm writing, when I'm composing, but when I'm reading and proofing and revising something I've written, I can't have music on. I need to be able to hear the words, that I've written, and their sound and rhythm. And so the music, I think, helps me put me in a creative mindset. But then when I put on my editor's hat and I'm revising, I've got to turn it off and concentrate on what I'm reading.
Did you start when you were, high school, and then, getting out in the world? Did you use a typewriter, or did you do it in longhand?
I'd write in longhand for years, and then type stuff up to submit it. But then it was, and I still write in longhand in my journals because I find I think differently when I write in longhand. But I now, when I'm writing an article or a book, I'll compose at the keyboard on my computer.
I've got to ask you, every writer's dream is to have something published in the New Yorker. What article did they first publish of yours in the New Yorker? And tell us the excitement and how that whole process evolved, and then when you got the call if they were going to accept something you wrote.
Well, it was a story about Alex Rodriguez when he was chasing 3,000 hits, and there's a local guy in St. Paul who had witnessed a bunch of, his name is Seth Hawkins, and he's witnessed a bunch of these milestones where guys have reached their 3,000th hit or pitchers have pitched their 300th victory. And so he was on Rodriguez's trail trying to be at the game or figure out which game he was going to do it at. And so I wrote this piece for the New Yorker about Seth Hawkins' quest to witness Alex Rodriguez's 3,000th hit. And so, I was very excited when they told me they were interested and wanted to assign me the piece.
That was John Rosengren. He's got a great article about John Denver's time in Minnesota from the late 60s to the early 70s. John's written about a dozen books. He's just a great writer and author, big baseball nut, and a lovely guy. That was the first time we chatted, but he wrote a great, very poignant article about the hockey legend Mark Pavlich from Evelyn, Minnesota, that got me turned on to John's writing. Well, I got some big shows. Tomorrow I am returning to Carmody's Pub, solo show from 4 to 6, Snow Cover 308 East Superior Street. Always a good time down there. Benefit for Ukraine on Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. Showtime's at 7 o'clock at the Sacred Heart Music Center. All proceeds go to Nova Ukraine. They've been on the ground in Ukraine since 2014, doing humanitarian aid and more. Performers there besides myself, Mark and Nancy Rubin, Aaron Aldridge, Christopher David Hansen, the Duluth Superior Harbor Masters, Liesl Wilson, Sonia Martin, Timothy Martin, Brianna Tepler, The Climbs, and more, John Ward and Laurie Hanton, and, of course, Whiskey River. And my salute to Bob Dylan at the new Alhambra Theater, which is right next to the West Theater, on Tuesday, May 20th. Show's at 8:30, featuring my longtime harmonica players Sonny Earl and Greg Inhofer, who played on keyboards on all 5 tracks on Dylan's legendary record, Blood on the Tracks. You're going to love the theater. You're going to love the show. We're going to have concert and conversation. Follow me at paulmetsa.com. Listen to past podcasts at KDL610.com. And like my dad used to tell me, remember to be kind and make someone happy. And happy homegrown, everybody out there. Thanks for listening.